I want you to close your eyes for a second, unless you're driving, obviously. And I want you to go back to a very specific, very painful moment, a moment of professional rejection. I'm talking about that physical gut punch when you realize, I didn't get the gig. You know the feeling I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely. It's visceral. It's not just a thought. It's a heavy, sinking sensation in the chest.
Your stomach drops.
Yeah, the air just gets sucked out of the room.
Exactly. It's that moment you're refreshing your email or sitting across from a hiring manager, and the answer is no. And usually in that split second, it feels like a total referendum on your worth. Like the universe is just looking at you and saying, you are not enough.
That's the default human response, right? We internalize it immediately. We spiral into, I'm a failure, or I chose the wrong career. But what we're exploring today is a stack of materials that argues something radically different. We're looking at the idea that this specific, excruciating moment of rejection might actually be the most efficient mechanism for freedom you will ever encounter.
It's a bold claim, but we have the case studies to back it up. We're going to unpack two interconnected survival stories today that are honestly, well, they're fascinating. One involves a world-class jazz musician, and the other involves a corporate writer who had a full-blown meltdown in a coffee shop.
And the mission here isn't to just offer comfort. We aren't here to say, don't worry, it gets better.
Right.
We want to look at the mechanics of how it gets better. We're treating rejection not as a dead end, but as a data point, a piece of information that forces a confrontation with yourself that you simply wouldn't have otherwise.
So let's get into it. Our first case study is Ben Wendel. Now, if you look up Ben Wendel today, the guy is a titan in the jazz world.
He is. Grammy-nominated saxophonist, accolades in the New York Times, played with Prince, Snoop Dogg. His resume is essentially bulletproof.
Right. It's easy to look at a guy like that and assume his career was just a straight line up and to the right. But the story we're focusing on takes us back to when Ben was 22. He's fresh out of college, he's young, he's hungry, and frankly, he's terrified that he's not going to make it.
Which is such a universal feeling for anyone entering a creative field. You have the degree, but you don't have the career yet. And the stakes felt incredibly high because of this one audition.
An audition for Ani DeFranco. And for anyone who wasn't listening to folk rock in the 90s and 2000s, Ani DeFranco is a legend. Touring with her isn't just a job. For a 22-year-old musician, that is the golden ticket. That is, I have arrived.
Exactly. It validates your entire existence as an artist. But here is the variable that complicates everything.
Go on.
Ben didn't just audition against strangers. He was auditioning against his best friend, Shane.
See, this is where I get stressed just reading about it. They were roommates, right?
Inseparable. They practiced together for this. They learned all the music together. They were a unit. So you have this dynamic where your biggest supporter is also your direct competition.
It's a zero-sum game.
Completely. Only one saxophone player is getting on that bus.
So they both go in. They both, by all accounts, crush the audition. They leave feeling good, and then the phone rings.
The tour manager calls Ben, and he delivers the news. We really liked you, but we're going with Shane.
Oof. It's the double-edged sword. You didn't just lose, you lost to the person closest to you.
That's what makes this specific rejection so toxic. It invites the comparison trap. Ben describes being completely crushed. He wasn't just disappointed, he felt stripped of his identity. He thought, if Shane is good, and they picked him, then I must be bad. I have no talent.
It's that binary thinking, but here is the detail that really twisted the knife for me. And I honestly don't know how he survived this without screaming.
I know what you're going to say.
Later that same day, he had a gig with Shane. He has to pack up his saxophone, go to a club, stand on stage next to the guy who just stole his dream, and play music.
Can you imagine the discipline that requires? Ben talks about standing there feeling scared and ashamed. He's playing the notes, he's smiling when he needs to smile, but internally, he is just collapsing.
It's a perfect example of that dissonance, between our professional masks and our internal reality.
Oh, for sure.
I think most people would have called in sick, or quit, or, I don't know, thrown a drink.
And that's the flight response. But Ben stayed. However, he knew he couldn't just bottle this up forever. And this brings us to the first major actionable insight from this deep dive.
Okay.
Ben utilized a tool that sounds simple, but the execution is actually quite profound. He used what we can call an emotional vomit journal.
Which is a delightful name. But I want to push back on this a little bit because journaling is the advice everyone gives for everything. Oh, you're sad, write it down. It feels a bit soft. Does it actually do anything, or is it just a distraction?
That's a fair skepticism.
Oh.
But the way Ben did it, and the way a lot of psychologists recommend doing it, is different from, like, Dear Diary.
Yeah.
It's about cognitive offloading.
Okay.
He sat down with a notebook. And ironically, it was a gift from a woman named Collie, who later married Shane, just to keep the circle tight.
Wow.
And he wrote for 45 minutes.
But he wasn't writing poetry.
No. The rule was no censoring, no editing, no trying to be a good person. He wrote down the ugliest parts of himself, the jealousy, the pettiness, the anger at the tour manager, the hatred of the situation. He just vomited the poison onto the page.
So he allowed himself to be a villain on paper.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that is why it works. When we try to suppress bad emotions like jealousy, they fester, they create shame. By externalizing them, physically writing them out, you detach from them. You can look at the page and say, okay, those are my thoughts. They are out of me now.
And he felt better.
Ben said that by the end of the session, he felt clear. The situation hadn't changed, but his physiology had calmed down.
Okay, so he purges the toxins, he survives the night. But the reality is still the same. Shane is getting on a tour bus to see the world, and Ben is stuck at home in his apartment.
And this is the pivot, the sliding doors moment.
Yeah.
Because Ben was stuck at home because he had this vacuum of time that he wouldn't have had if he were touring, he needed to do something.
Yeah.
So he called up some friends and started a band.
A little jazz group called Knee Buddy.
Which became his primary creative vehicle. Knee Buddy toured the world. They got a Grammy nomination. They built a cult following.
Yeah.
And crucially, Ben was playing his music. If he had gone with Ani DeFranco, he would have been playing her music. He would have been a sideman. A very successful sideman.
But still a sideman, yeah.
It brings up that question of agency. Rejection forced him to become a founder rather than an employee.
Exactly. And the beautiful coda to the story is that years later, Shane actually joined Knee Buddy. So they ended up touring the world together anyway, but on Ben's terms, in a band Ben helped build.
It's an incredible full circle moment.
That is incredible. But I want to play devil's advocate for a second. Is there a bit of survivorship bias here? We're telling this story because Ben made it. For every Ben, aren't there 1,000 musicians who get rejected, don't start a band, and just end up selling insurance and being miserable?
That is a very real point. Rejection isn't magic. It doesn't guarantee success. But what rejection does is provide an opportunity. It clears the calendar. It removes the good enough option, so you're forced to look for the great option. Whether you take that opportunity is up to you. Ben could have sat on the couch. He chose to build something.
So the rejection is just the catalyst. The reaction is the variable.
Correct. And that brings us perfectly to our second story, because the reaction here was, well, much messier.
Oh, yes. We're moving from the jazz clubs to the gray cubicle. This is the story of Alex. And full disclosure, Alex is actually Ben's younger sister. So clearly there is something in the water in the Wendel household regarding dramatic career shifts.
Apparently. But Alex's situation was different. Ben faced an external rejection. Someone told him no. Alex was dealing with an internal prison. She was 24, working at a public broadcasting company in the Midwest.
And on paper, this was the American dream, right?
Safe job.
Yeah.
Benefits. A powerful boss.
Yeah.
She was the right hand to the head of broadcast technology. But the reality she describes is just soul-crushing. She talks about the gray cubicle and the endless, meaningless administrative tasks. But she fell into a very common psychological trap.
The golden handcuffs.
Exactly. I love my job. I love my job.
She would chant it.
That was her mantra. She would sit in her car and chant, I love my job, to try and override the misery. We call this cognitive dissonance. Her actions, going to work, and her feelings, hating the work, were in conflict. So she tried to change her feelings to match her actions.
Because the alternative, admitting you've wasted years on a career you hate, is just too terrifying.
Right. It's the sunk cost fallacy. I've invested this much time, I can't leave now. So she stayed. Until the Great Recession hit.
Layoffs start happening. And this is where the story gets dark, but also kind of funny in a grim way. Alex starts having fantasies about getting fired.
She wanted the decision taken out of her hands. She felt guilty because her colleagues were terrified of losing their livelihoods, but she was secretly hoping someone would walk in with a pink slip and set her free.
She wanted permission to leave, but she didn't get it. Instead, she got Jeff.
Jeff, the anti-boss.
Yeah.
Charismatic, theater background, groomed for the C-suite. He approaches Alex and offers her a lifeline, or what looks like one, a new position, working directly for him with double the salary.
Double the salary. That is the ultimate trap for someone who is unhappy. You think, okay, I hate my life now, but if I had twice as much money, I could buy happiness.
She thought status and money would cure the misalignment in her soul. So she ignores her gut, She ignores the fantasy of leaving, and she applies. She puts on a suit, she does the interviews, she plays the game.
And she assumes it's a done deal because Jeff likes her.
Until he invites her for coffee.
Caribou coffee.
For our international listeners, picture a fluorescent-lit chain in a Midwestern food court. It is not a place of high drama. There's a fake fireplace, a picture of a moose.
And Jeff buys her a latte, they sit down, and he looks at her and says, "You're not getting the job."
Now, normally there is a script for this. You nod, you swallow the lump in your throat, you say thank you for the consideration, and you go cry in your car. That is the professional contract.
Alex tore up the contract.
She shattered it. She burst into tears immediately, right there in the food court.
And she describes being mortified. She's wiping her eyes with a napkin, thinking, this is the end of my career. I am a child. But why did she cry? Was it because she wanted the job that bad?
That's the fascinating part. The body often knows the truth before the brain does. She wasn't crying because she lost the job. She was crying because the no broke the dam of her denial.
And this is where Jeff becomes the hero of the story, in my opinion. A lot of bosses would have awkwardly checked their watch.
Jeff didn't flinch. He leaned in and asked a question that changed her life. He asked, "What is making you cry right now?"
That is high-level emotional intelligence.
It is. He forced her to analyze the emotion. And Alex, in her shock, told the truth. She said, "I don't even want this job. I'm just unhappy."
Wow. Once you say that out loud to your boss, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
You really can't.
Right.
And Jeff followed up with, "So what's next?" And she blurted out, "I need to leave."
It wasn't a plan. It was a reflex.
It was the truth. If Jeff had given her that job, she would have taken it. She would have taken the money, bought a nicer car, and stayed in that gray cubicle for another 10 years. She would have suffocated under the weight of a career she didn't want.
So Jeff's no was the only thing powerful enough to break the golden handcuffs.
It was. He actually helps her transition out. She leaves the company. And with absolutely no plan, which is terrifying, she decides to try freelance writing.
A complete leap of faith.
And let's look at the data 8 years later. She has over 200 clients. She's written thousands of articles. She's been published in Forbes, HuffPost, Newsweek. She has book deals.
She built a life that was impossible inside the broadcasting company.
And she explicitly states, this career exists only because Jeff rejected her. That rejection was the pivot point. It was the moment the universe saved her from herself.
It really connects these two stories. Ben and Alex both experienced a moment that felt like death. Ben felt talentless, Alex felt humiliated, but in both cases, the rejection was a redirection mechanism.
It reminds me of a concept discussed in the source material regarding the artist's path. And this applies to anyone doing something authentic, not just artists. The idea is that if you choose a path that is true to you, you are permanently inviting criticism and rejection into your life.
It's the price of admission.
Exactly. Safety is staying in the cubicle and hating it. Freedom is going out on your own and risking the no. But then there was this analogy about Tibetan monks that I found really challenging.
Oh, the prayer. This stopped me in my tracks.
The source mentions that some monks in Tibet pray for a life that includes suffering.
Which is the opposite of everything our culture teaches us. We pray for the promotion. We pray for the easy win. We optimize for comfort.
But the monk's perspective is that wisdom cannot exist without challenge. You don't learn resilience when everything goes your way. You learn it when you're standing in a food court crying into a napkin. You learn it when you watch your best friend take your spot on the tour bus. That suffering is the raw material for growth.
So we shouldn't just tolerate the rejection. We should almost welcome it.
We should recognize its utility. It leads us to the episode's title, Thank God They Didn't Hire Me. The source suggests that if you look back at your life, the closed doors were often more important than the open ones.
It forces you to confront what you really want. Maybe that no is the reason you finally wrote the cookbook, or opened the bakery, or just reconnected with your family.
Rejection creates a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. Something new will fill that space. And usually, if you are listening to yourself, that something new is closer to who you actually are.
So let's bring this down to the ground for the listener. Because philosophy is great, but if someone listening right now just got fired, or just got dumped, or just got a rejection letter, it hurts. What do they do? First,
acknowledge the pain. Don't spiritualize it away immediately. Use the vomit journal. Get the poison out. If you need to be petty on paper. Clear the mental cache.
I'm definitely buying a notebook after this.
It's cheaper than therapy. But the second step is the cognitive reframe. Stop asking, why not me? That is a victim question. It keeps you looking backward at the locked door.
Instead, ask, what is this making room for?
Exactly. What is this making room for? It shifts your focus from the loss to the potential. It turns the void into a canvas.
It's hard to do in the moment. I don't want to minimize that.
It's incredibly hard.
Yeah.
But looking at Ben and Alex, they didn't just survive. They thrived because of the failure. Their best lives were waiting on the other side of the no.
It's a powerful perspective shift. The idea that the thing you are most afraid of failure might actually be the key to the life you actually want.
It's the paradox of growth.
Well, this has been a massive reframing for me personally. I'm going to look at my own no's a little differently this week.
As should we all.
I want to leave you with one final thought. If you are currently staring at a closed door and you're banging your fists against it, trying to get in, take a breath. Turn around. Look at the empty space behind you. That space isn't a dead end. It's the beginning of something else.
Beautifully said.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.